inside the parent.
YouTube, yeah. There it goes.
Morning, everybody. We'll stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God, thank you for the opportunity to meet and do business in the county today. I ask the Commissioner's guidance and wisdom as the decisions that affect the county. And to watch over our folks. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'll make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes from last week.
I'll second it.
Motion been moved, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion, we pay the claims in the amount of $458,519.35.
I'll second that motion.
Motion been moved, second. All in favor?
Aye.
I've got a couple more things before we get into the rest of the meeting. Next Monday is Labor Day, so we need a motion to reschedule that to Tuesday, the 5th.
I'll make a motion that we reschedule next week's meeting until following Tuesday because of Labor Day.
I'll second it.
Motion been moved, second. All in favor?
Aye.
And then a week or two ago, I think I sent a notice out about the Southeast Kansas County officials meeting coming up in Columbus. And I hadn't heard back from any of you three on if you planned on going or not. I need to let them know this week how many we've got coming. It'd be on the 14th of September, courthouse in Columbus.
I can't make it.
14th.
Yeah.
What time?
I think the registration will start at 9. The meetings typically start at 10. And they'll go till lunchtime, have lunch, and probably some prize drawings and after that.
I'll get back to you and let you know. I haven't supposed to start a job that day, but I might be able to move it. I'll let you know.
I have another meeting that day already, so I'm out.
Maybe one, but that sounds like it at the moment anyway. And then the other thing I had to start today, when Kathy was in a week or two ago, she talked about getting rid of the Ford Explorer that they've had for the appraiser's office. So I have a declaration of surplus property resolution, number 2023-36. And I think her plan is to put that on Purple Wave and try to sell it.
Okay.
Motion that we accept resolution 2023-36, which is a declaration of surplus property put in the 2007 Ford Explorer that the appraiser's office owns on Purple Wave for bid.
I'll second it.
Motion been moved and seconded. Any more discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think that's all I've got for this part of the meeting.
Gary, you got anything right off the bat?
Nope.
All right, AMR?
Good morning, Commissioners. Galen called me last night about 9 o'clock and said he wasn't be able to make it today, so to pass along the numbers to you. Last week, we had 48 page outs and 20 transports. That's a lot of calls, but we've had a lot of lift assists and people wanting their vital signs checked and stuff like that. But we still have to make a call for it. So, is there anything I can pass on to Galen or answer any questions?
When you said that people call you to check their vital signs?
Yeah.
So do you guys, do they tell you?
We have to generate a call because we're touching somebody.
So do you have to, are you in a hurry to get there too? Or do you guys know beforehand that's what you're doing?
They'll come up and request.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So like, a lot of times they come up with a station.
Oh, okay, I'm following.
Type of stuff. Then of course, we had, for the past year, a lot of people just need help getting done. Well, good.
Anything heat related, or is that,
There has been some heat stuff in the past couple of weeks, but
okay,
not nearly as bad as I thought.
right? Good.
Last week's call volume is, you notice it's a little bit more than what it has been, but we had a couple of busy days. I think our average is about 14 to 16 a week, but we popped at 20, so.
Okay,
Any questions?
thank
All
you.
right.
All right, thank you.
Randy?
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Hagwald, Linn County Emergency Preparedness and Rural Fire. I sent out last week's report. We had 12 incidents brings our yearly total up to 300. Last week was pretty busy. For us this weekend was real busy for calls. FG is bringing that foam trailer down, the F500 trailer this week, so we'll be putting that up at Station 950. Went to the conference last week and seen it. It's really impressive trailer. They're gonna have a little ceremony. I'll let you guys know time and date. They're looking at Wednesday morning, but I'll let you guys know for sure. It'll be up at the power plant. We'll get that. Emergency preparedness side, going through our EOP, we have to have it turned in by March of 2024. We have to go through it and review it and then send it to the state for review. So we're doing that. And Linda's going to look into start scheduling classes again, like we did the CPR class last spring, to get community some training and different things. So other than that, I have nothing.
Have you heard anything on the mutual aid agreements between the cities?
No, I have not.
What, is that something that we need to work on, Gary, or, I mean,
I think you're working on it.
Yeah.
are you getting any feedback from them?
Not really.
Not really?
I mean, by the time there's something drafted, we'll review it before it's approved.
Is there anything we can do to help push that along, or how important is that?
No, it's just, some things take time. Take it back to the fire board, let them look at it, and just back and forth. Our fire board only meets every other month. It's a long process, so.
I don't have anything else, do you guys?
I don't have anything.
All right. Thank you.
Randy.
Kevin?
Morning, Commissioners. Kevin Friend, Linn County Sheriff. For our numbers this morning, 64 inmates in, had 19 releases this past week. 42 of those 64 that are farm ins. Last week we had 78 911 calls, 2,513 jail contacts. Total calls for service countywide was 582. That's law enforcement, fire services, and medical. This past week, we served 115 civil service papers. I think that's probably the most we've ever served in a week, so it'll tell you our courts are pretty busy. Had 4 VIN inspections, 17 new open cases, had 12 cases closed, 5 vehicle crashes, SRO activities picked up. Of course, school got back in session pretty much everywhere, so had 87 school resource activities. 160 people in the front door of the courthouse that the bailiffs checked. 24 of those turned into calls for service, with helping people with something further than just checking them in. Had 4 livestock out calls, and our daily income at the jail right now is $3,224.50. It's per day right now. So that's what I have for the commission. If you have anything for me.
Yeah, I got a question. Got an email from Amanda this week, and she said you gifted her a truck. And I wonder, is that the procedure we do from one department to the other? Is that proper procedure?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything precluding it.
Is that the way we do things, Gary, as far as getting rid of one department, gets rid of a vehicle to another?
We often
just reassign vehicles between departments. Now, the thing is, the sheriff's vehicles are under his control. So he doesn't, if he wants to offer it to somebody, he can do that without commission approval. Theoretically, she would need your approval to accept it, I suppose, because there are going to be operating expenses with running them. So I think that's how.
We did the same thing with the appraiser's office, that Explorer that had a resolution to get rid of. I'm pretty sure it was gifted to,
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I gifted one a couple of years ago to IT, actually. I had a Ford Explorer that we were done with on the road. And the thing is, when we go to, if we were go to trade the vehicle, I think the offer on this one was $2,000 trade-in, and the truck was truly worth more than that. So I knew there was a thing with them wanting a vehicle, and we'd replace that truck with a new purchase.
I just see it as a problem with her taking it, I mean, without us approving it, I guess.
Well, her letter says
But she said she had it in her control is what
that you had it, and if you didn't want her to have it, she'd give it back.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Chris?
Good morning. From last week, we talked about, or I was hoping we could move forward with siding on the tower
Yeah, and I couldn't make contact with it, so we'll just move forward.
with the Hayden.
I mean, if that's what you guys want, yeah.
Okay. Because,
I think that's what we should do.
okay. Do you want to make a
Probably need to make a motion to give them that.
Can you just explain just again what you're talking about?
Yeah, so this is for the tear down, the removal of the tower here behind the old sheriff's office and Hayden Tower, which they've been good. They keep coming back and working with us. So this bid is for them getting a crane and scheduling that to come down here. They're going to dismantle the 180-foot self-supporting tower. They'll have tower climbers here, and this is a part of them being here with our radio project. So it's one mobilization. Okay, so while they're here, they'll do this also. So that gave us a little bit of a discount. They will remove the antennas off the top for our storage. They will break it down, and then our staff, meaning Public Works, would be on site to, when they drop the section down, they will cut them up, take them apart. However they do that, they said it's real simple. And Sean has been involved with that, and they send a rep down so the Public Works knew exactly what the scope of that was, and they were all comfortable that we had the equipment and that it wouldn't take more than probably a few hours, 2 or 3 hours of our time, and then we would load it on a trailer and we would dispose of the tower, whether that's scrapping it, whatever you guys decide you want to do with that. That entire piece is $19,500. That was their quote.
Is there much use for this other than scrap?
Everybody I've talked to says they don't want it.
So should we just take it straight to the recycling?
That's, yeah, they talked about putting it in some kind of they have a scrap pile down here and then hauling it, or just hauling it straight to a recycling place. But even Hayden, I talked to a couple others that they were much further away. So they said if they had bid, there was no way they could touch what Hayden was doing because of their distance. But they said they wouldn't keep it. That tower's been there since early 90s, I believe, late 80s, somewhere in that time frame, and they just felt like it wasn't worth salvaging.
How do you guys feel? I think we should unload it and load it again. I think we should just do away with it.
I think we should just haul it off. Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion that we go with Hayden Tower for the dismantling of the 180-foot tower at the old sheriff's department building for $19,500.
I'll second. What needs to be done? I guess we'll go ahead and make a motion. I'll second. Motion been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So after the tower, what do we need to do? We need to move the generator and the switch.
So the generator switch is if you're going to remove the building. So that decision will have to be made. If you're keeping it there, I would leave it right where it is.
And they're aware of the generator's going to be.
They are. Mhm. And that's not a problem. If you should decide, Sean has it worked out where we can pick up that generator and move it, we would just have an electrician come disconnect it. And so that's not something we'd have to have the crane for.
Okay. All right.
Anything else for me? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Jessica? Nothing? Darren? Is he around?
Well, while you're waiting on him, we do have one application for dump fee forgiveness. They followed all of our procedures. This is somebody up at Centerville that we do need this cleaned up, and they've been trying to get it cleaned up, but the cost is somewhat prohibitive for them. So they've applied for dump fee forgiveness. It's 204 Main Street in Centerville. The applicant's name is, what's her name? I forgot her name. Oh, Darren? What's, Garcia, yeah. So, it does comply now with all of our requirements. So if you're willing to do so, motion to, authorize, Darren to grant her this, dump fee, reduction.
You guys got any questions on it? Is it a nuisance that we,
That's what brought her to this point, is that their house burned down. They couldn't get rid of it. They were having trouble getting it hauled, getting it cleaned up. We took them to codes court, and as a result of that, now they found a way to haul it, but they can't afford to pay for the dumping, so. It's consistent with what we do when the cities condemn one.
you got anything you want to add to that? Is there anything you need to,
Pardon me?
is there anything you need to add to it?
No.
No. I'll make a motion that we waive dump fees for the Centerville address 204 Main Street at the landfill.
I'll second it.
Motion been moved and seconded. Any more discussion?
No?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right, go ahead.
A couple of weeks ago, I came in and brought you a nuisance regulation for residential lake community and unincorporated towns of the county. And I just come back in to see if you'd had time to discuss it and make a decision on it.
So I've actually got a lot of phone calls over the lake communities and living in campers and stuff. Can you kind of explain, that's part of this, right?
So the camper situation's separate. So they can live in campers year round as long as the lake communities have designated areas for it.
So, and I've been getting a few phone calls just saying that if we're going to go in there and police that, what, is that just HOAs trying to scare people or you're not in there trying to,
Nope,
yeah, you're just kind of backing them up on their decision, right?
correct.
Well, how can we back them up on decisions that they don't even follow their own codes? I mean, I've reached out to multiple people at Sugar Valley that said they don't even follow the rules that they have written themselves.
So they have new management out there that's trying to enforce that.
Why do we need to step off into something which is the HOAs when we don't, it isn't the county policy?
So the county, when they adopted the new zoning regulations, they adopted a residential lake community, which the zoning regulations, or not the zoning regulations, the nuisance regulations didn't fit those communities. So I done some research and wrote this for the residential lake communities to help clean them up.
I don't see taking private property that we're going to go, why do we need to go police private property? They have their own HOA rules.
They're still part of the county.
I still pay taxes, Jim.
It don't matter though. You take it across the street, and if it's the same bus right across the street, how can you stop it over here and not here without getting liability issues?
The county has always had a regulation that says you can't live full-time in a camper.
No, I'm not saying that's not, the camper issue isn't even on the deal.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we.
I'm just saying, as far as, how can you take and tell somebody they're going to clean it up when we have a whole southeast corner of the lake community out here that's never been mowed all summer long? They haven't even mowed the hay off of it. A lot of times you'll see bales of hay laying on it this time of year. So how can you tell me that we need to go in and clean it up?
So I know Sugar Valley mows their hay late in the year.
Well, okay.
Well, I think that's what this nuisance regulations is trying to get at, is we want to enforce
I
it.
don't think it says anything about the hay, does it?
About the hay? About them haying?
Yeah, about baling the hay and letting the grass grow up as tall as it is.
Okay. It doesn't say anything about that. You view that as a major issue?
Well, it's an issue that I, as a taxpayer in Linn County, I can't go out there because I don't own anything out there. So I'm not allowed out there without being a guest to somebody.
Okay.
So how do I see that
But-
doesn't need
but-
to go to police?
So like our nuisance regulations within the county are that same way, aren't they?
Countywide.
Right, but they're the same way. We're policing something that
Countywide.
is not on,
Countywide.
okay, what's that mean? What are you trying to
How
get
can
at?
we choose here to police this and not police what's across the road?
Because it's different.
No, it isn't. That's private property. The homeowners association owns it. They can set their rules that they want to set. They follow our rules, but they can make stricter rules themselves.
But at the end of the day.
And they can.
Court system. If they don't follow, right, correct? I mean, if there's a nuisance and they don't follow their HA rules, they come to our Linn County courts, right? Coach court.
They call and ask for help from the county. If not, the only alternative is that they can sue civilly.
And the only ones we get involved with are when they're in violation of our regulations.
That's right. We have our regulations.
We don't enforce their regulations.
They have to follow our regulations, but they can set stiffer regulations themselves.
That's right.
So why do we need to step off in this? It's a homeowners association. You go to a large city, they have to follow the city regulations and the county regulations, but they can decide they don't want the garage door open. And if the garage door is open, they can fine you for that.
Okay, so they can still do that there.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let the homeowners association take care of their regulations. Why do we need to step off on it?
I think they're asking us to.
Yeah, they want us to police it for them.
They're taxpayers of the county just the same as everybody else.
So you're going to step off into the situation where you have this, and then across the road, if you have the same issue, what do you do there then?
We have a regulation for that as well.
No, you don't. You don't have for what's
So
your right.
each district has its own regulation. If you read in the zoning regulations, it says what you can and can't do in each zoning regulation.
Just like this here that you've got written,
Yeah,
countywide.
theirs is different.
That's what I'm getting at. I
Well,
don't see it.
ag is different, countryside's different, residential's different, and residential lake community's different.
I'm not buying off on this one. I don't.
Just like conditional use permits. Conditional use permits they're different according to the zoning district.
As I said before, years ago, the county did not get involved in doing any enforcement within the lake communities. A number of years ago, the commissioners at the time, because of pressure from the public, began to push us to do that.
What commissioners?
I don't recall exactly.
I talked to a commissioner who'd been there quite a while ahead of me, and he says they had nothing to do with that. They didn't want any part of it. And I've got one, and he would come and talk about it.
Jim, if he wants to come in here and call me a liar, he can do that.
I'm telling you,
That's what you're doing right now.
That's what he told me.
But the commission made a decision over the years that they wanted, because of pressure from the public, that they wanted to do some enforcement. I don't care. It'd make my life easier if we didn't.
It makes you money if we do, though.
I don't,
Coach court.
I told you, I'm happy not to.
It makes
If you think that's what this is about, then you are off beat here.
I see that where we're headed.
I'll make a motion that we accept the nuisance regulations that you have gathered for the lake communities.
I'll second it.
Motion been moved, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
In the form of a resolution.
I need to redo a motion.
Well, we need a resolution number. I didn't know you were going to do it.
We're getting off feed a little bit, so. Do you know what the number would be for that, David?
Let me check and make sure. I believe it would be 37.
You guys just opening yourself up for a lawsuit's what you're doing right there.
It's no different than being on a commission with you, Jim.
It would be,
You guys are running this deal, you're gonna be in one anyway.
I mean, if your house is not livable, or is the county gonna tell you that it's a nuisance and we gotta tear it down, and do we regulate that? It's private property, right?
That's right, that's private property too.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the same thing.
They're not telling me to tear it down.
What do you mean?
You're saying you're gonna come tell me to tear my house down?
No, that's not what he's saying.
You're setting a set of regulations right there that you're not setting for the whole county.
We are, it's for the whole county, right? I mean,
It's for that zoning
You
district.
better read it, Andy. That isn't for the whole county.
It's
I
for
know
that
this one
zoning district.
specifically isn't, but the whole county has regulations.
Right. I think you better read what you're signing off on, Danny.
the one with the date correct like this. Or I could do it.
I changed it.
Oh, he's got one. You got it with the right date? Okay. Yeah. You have a motion that was approved 2-1 to accept the regulations. If you're wanting to do the resolution, it would be 2023-37.
So we got that motion. I don't know if we did a official 2-1 motion carried. What else you got, Darren?
I also need,
I think
We need to adopt a resolution.
you need an additional resolution or additional motion because we didn't have to include the resolution in that motion.
How would you want that to read?
Just
What
to
is it?
approve resolution number
2023-37.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2023-37, which is a resolution amending the Linn County nuisance code by the addition of creating regulation acceptable to residential lake communities and incorporated towns in Linn County.
I'll second that motion.
Motion moved, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
This is one for signatures.
Motion carries 2-1.
I also need 10 minutes of executive session with the three commissioners, Gary, David, and Sean, for legal.
With Gary and Sean, you said? Or with Sean? Or who?
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioners, Gary, David, and Sean.
All right, how's everything else going?
Good.
We got a lot of building permits?
Yeah, we're quite a bit ahead of what we did last year. I think we're right at 100 permits so far this year. And last year, we only did 136, I think.
Since we changed the sewer, how we did that, like meeting them on site and stuff, how's that all going? Like when we made them a certified vendor, the pumpers,
Oh, that's been going good.
no flaws, huh?
Nope, we've only had one request for a second inspection.
How many, do we have a lot of vendors that are inspectors?
Yeah, Shadden's, M&M's, and Harry's Septic, and I can't think of the guy in Tanglewood Lake.
Chris's septic.
Yeah, but I think he bought out Chris's Septic.
Okay.
If you want to be a vendor, what do they just call you and
Yeah.
get on a list and
Yep.
that's working with all the real estate agents and all that stuff. Real good.
Yep.
All right. I don't have anything else for you.
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks.
Sean, I forgot about you. I apologize.
Sean West, Public Works Administrator. I continued to check on the Wyoming road situation. Spent an hour and 12 minutes on hold while typing one day last week. I was able to get a new and current email for the project or design manager, and was able to send one out this time that did not come back undeliverable, but I still have not been given any times. I've been working on that and will continue to work on getting you an answer on that, but
Wyoming, is that the dead end road? Which road was
this is the Evergy
it? With the poles in the road?
pole issue in the right of way off of
Okay.
just north of 31, at the county line. So I'm continuing to work on it and have pushed to get an answer in this, but what I'm telling you is I haven't got one yet, but I've been working on it. We had an issue last week. One of our shop guys found a tube south of 1000 on Botkin Road, where we had sloughing and we also had a hole on the road surface. After inspection of the tube, he found out that this rather large tube has been eaten out on the base of it. So basically, we've got an archway instead of a tube going through it. The South Shop will be addressing that this week, but it's very similar to what we had on 1077, where we had some sloughing on the sides and noticed that it channeled underneath, so that it's going to be another full extraction and a rebuild on that tube project. There was tree trimming with the new forestry heads on Montgomery Road, south of 52. I believe if you want to look at that and what the machine's capable of, we had an operator in there working that machine, and it gives a decent example of what that machine's capable of. We, on our mowing contract this week, with the heat and things backing off as the summer goes on, I've sent out an email asking department heads to let me know each Monday so that we can let the contractor know whether or not sites need taken care of. None of those will be mowed this week based on the heat and the lack of growth that we've had over the last week. And I have an update from Johnny. So I apologize, I may not have printed that out. I do have some executive session, and after that, I can give you the noxious weed update. I'll print that out and bring that out to you. I do need 10 minutes for legal in executive session and 5 minutes of personnel for non-elected personnel with the commissioners, and then another 5 minutes of non-elected personnel without Commissioner Hightower. Oh, and I also noted that Darren and I will be leaving for training this week. This is the wastewater training that's going to allow us to get a second operator in the Centerville area as a backup. He's also been working on that quite a bit from the very get-go, and working towards his certification, and that will be gone until Friday morning. Do you have any questions for me?
There was a resident in here before the meeting from Danny's area about the roads being graded, and roads being mowed. Are we mowing over in that area?
I'll have to check. I know we have had mowers out, and we've had mowers out on the weekends as well.
I seen one Saturday out mowing down.
But as far as any specific area, I haven't had an update from last week, and I can get that and bring that in. But I couldn't speak intelligently on any of that. Now, the
Are we running the graders?
graders are running as far as I know. I haven't been told otherwise. We have had some mechanical issues that we've dealt with one or two that were inspected that we've talked about in the past. I did look at a issue in your area that we had spoke about and some washboarding. We've tried to maintenance that area. The issue keeps getting brought back. I think the issue is that we haven't had enough, the efforts we're making haven't had enough moisture to repack that roadway, so it continues to do that. So until we get a little bit of moisture to assist us in packing, that may be an issue that we're going to continue to work on until we get it resolved. But other than that, I haven't had any issues brought to me about those.
I think it's the same person that came in here and called me about the same thing. And he wants to know answer why or if we can, or why the my district barn was shut down and what we'd have to do to open it back up. And, I think it's more of a David and Gary question. I didn't have a good answer for him, so I have no clue why it was shut down. The one in Pleasanton?
The commissioners at the time decided that a two-barn system was, a two-district system or two-barn system was more efficient. That way there weren't three different supervisors being paid. I think that's part of it. Also, there were some problems with maintaining, I think there were some disciplinary problems at the Pleasanton barn.
There had been at one point anyway.
But I think it was mainly to try to eliminate on middle management.
But I think at the time that eliminated a foreman and mechanic position, I think, the way we reorganized.
Don't we have a mechanic over there now, though?
We have a position, but it's unfilled at this current time. And I would offer that we are interviewing several applicants this afternoon.
His concern, I think, was the mowers sitting around, nothing's been mowed down there. I haven't been there, and the graders haven't been running. That's what he told me.
Yeah, and Sean, and I've talked to Sean a few times about it, and yeah, I mean, I feel like nothing's getting mowed over in that area, and talked about it 2 weeks ago too. And I know that some landowners have went out and mowed the right of way, and then called me about it and asked me where to send the invoice. So,
Let me check with that shop or the south shop and find out what's been mowed. And if they've focused the mowing in other districts, then I'll ask them this week to put
I
the
feel like
time and the effort in there.
because they feel like that we're taking the back seat and being forgot about. So
Okay. If we were to discuss realigning it as it used to be, the only thing I'd say we'd have to probably have some work sessions as far as equipment disbursement and as far as the budget disbursement for each one of those. I mean, it's not undoable. It was done before, but if that's something that we look into, it'll be a little bit more complicated than just assigning the shop, and we'd have to have some discussions about how we'd man that shop.
I just like a little info of why it was shut down, and what the pros and cons to it.
And that's prior to me, and I couldn't speak intelligently to it.
I think, was it Vicky was on the board at that time, wasn't she? Probably Mike, Paige. And I think it was before Rick's time, maybe. Who preceded Rick? I can't remember.
Herb Pemberton.
Yeah,
I think it was during-
no, I guess it would have been Rick's time.
Probably
It was
was
during,
Rick's.
yeah. I don't know. I know when I first got in, I asked everybody, if they could change, when I went to that barn and asked them if they could change one thing, they would say, get our district, or they wrote down on a piece of paper, I still have them, that get our barn back is what their number one concern was. So, and I don't know if that's still today what their concern is, but I definitely don't want people over my district feeling like they're being left out.
I would agree. But if we do have that discussion, like I said, we need to sit down and look at the equipment inventory and personnel assignments and budgeting so that we don't create something that isn't supported.
What about Boycourt Road? Have you got any, the counter on that? I wasn't here last week. I don't know if you talked about it or that, the river.
I don't have the counter back. I'll check on it this week, but I anticipate coming back to you with the numbers. And I've also had a wildlife and parks officer from that area, from Area G, reach out to me. And when I bring that counter back in, he'd like to come and speak to you about that area as well and about the access and the roadways. So I plan to invite him as well as bring the counter back in to you. So you can get that information all at one time, and that's what I'm waiting on. I'd rather bring it all to you at one time so you can have a healthy discussion on it.
Okay.
But I'll try to get that to you next week.
What about the trash compactor sites? Have we got anywhere else on that?
On the
Those regular
regulations,
We're waiting,
in the city or the, what are we waiting on?
I sent it over and we're going to make a first copy between Gary and I, for you to look at so you can take those points out of it, but it is not ready for you to look at yet.
Okay.
But it is in the works.
I don't think I have anything else.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
okay, from the count I had, we were looking at 20 for legal and 10 for personnel.
I'll make a motion that we go.
Okay, can I stop
Oh,
you for
sorry,
a
go ahead,
second
yeah.
before you make a motion? I've got Stephen along today, just sitting in to be ready to fill in when I'm not here. Do you want to include him in the executive session or not? Because that'd be up to you guys, what you want to do.
There's no legal reason not to, but that's up to you, Dave. If you think it'd be helpful to him to see how one works, that's fine. If you want to wait till another time, it's,
Yeah, and I don't care. I mean, it'd just be discussions in there, but
so whatever you commissioners think.
I'm fine with him coming in.
I'm fine with it.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for 10 minutes legal with Sean,
Darren.
and then 10 minutes legal with Darren, 5 minutes personnel with Sean, and then 5 minutes, another 5 minutes personnel with Sean without Jason. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and move and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Information is on there. That's their time.
Don, you got anything else?
Just the noxious weed report. As we spoke before, cost shares have been cut off except the two outstanding that we spoke about. Last 2 weeks, Johnny reports that they've been exclusively working on Johnson grass. He stayed in communication with the foremans and also Kevin, who's been helping mow. The list of roads that have been sprayed for Johnson grass to this point are Casida from 200 to 31, 300 from Casida to Gorman, 400 from 1077 to Harkness, Harkness from 400 to 200, 200 from Harkness to 7, 300 from Thomas to 31, 950 from Scott to Osborne, 1,000 from Scott to Thomas, 1050 from Scott to Thomas, 1,100 Scott to 7, Polly from 1350 to 14. They've also sprayed a dirt pile that a citizen had reported that we'd staged that was infested with Johnson grass and had concerns about it coming onto their property. We sprayed it, and they helped with a spraying along the fairgrounds as well for Johnson grass and intersections of 1,000 in Waddles, 1,100 in Waddles, 950 in Payne. Carl will go full-time at the landfill on September 4th, and then Johnny will be spraying on his own to finish out the season. Any questions for me?
I don't know.
Thank you.
I had spoke with a real estate agent on the elderly center this morning. He wanted to give an update. He wanted me to see if we could call him and give him, or so he could talk and give an update on it and what his advice on it was. But he had a meeting at 10, so if it's all right, we can talk about, I'll call or text him and tell him that we're ready for him and he can get a hold of me when he's ready. And we can go ahead and discuss budgets. We'll do that. We'll talk to him afterwards. You guys good with that?
However you guys want to handle it.
He said he was gonna be busy at 10.
So I believe I had sent all of you some information, copies of the budgets, the way I had them when we published. I know one thing we've discussed that I had not done yet because I was already publishing at that point was vehicle for the health department. So I think there's 20,000 we could pull out of their budget request to remove that because they're not going to be purchasing a new vehicle. Other than that, where I had it with what was published, let me get to the right spot. Our county mill levy would be 41.278 mils, and that is down from 42.581 in the current year. So we're looking at a reduction of about 1.3 mils. It is still about, roughly 0.3 mils over revenue neutral. And then on the fire department, which is a special district, the levy as it stands would be 1.652. with a revenue neutral of 1.870. So we were about 2/10 under revenue neutral on the fire budget. So at this point, the only thing, and I had made some income adjustments that got us down original estimates to get to those numbers that I published. I had gone back and looked at income that had come in so far this year and estimating what we should have the rest of the year. I increased our reimbursements in the general fund by $6,000 because we'd had some bigger reimbursements come in that should bump us up more than what I originally estimated. Our miscellaneous income, I raised by $3,000 just based on what's been coming in. Solid waste fees, I increased $2,000, again, based on what we've been getting in and projecting it out through the year. The same thing on the marina revenue. It looks like about 5,000 more than I had originally estimated for this year. So there was 16,000 in income that I added to the general fund, which is what helped bring the levy down to where it was there. We had mentioned all the money that came in from the tax sale. When I went back and looked, I had already estimated income from delinquent taxes in the budget. So I already had that calculated in there. I don't know exactly what that number is yet because it hasn't gone all the way through the system and been distributed, but I do have estimates in there for it. The other thing I had is I had reached out to Trico and to SEK Mental Health for more information from them. I received one email back Friday and another one this morning, Friday from Mental Health, this morning from Trico, and I put those out in your folder where you can see them. I also got 3 copies of each one of them here if you want to take a look at it, because I know that was an area you wanted to look at on those again. So there's 3 of the SEK or Trico email, and there's 3 of the SEK Mental Health email if you wanted to review those. And then just to go with that, just state that next week is the hearing for revenue neutral rate and budget. I have that scheduled for 11 o'clock on Tuesday. We'll be meeting Tuesday next week.
So we need to have any changes made before Tuesday?
Well, they could still be done up till the time the budget is approved at that meeting Tuesday at the end of the hearing. I assume from conversations before, you do want me to go ahead and take that 20,000 out of the health budget that was set in there for a new vehicle?
Yes.
Correct.
So how much are we short?
Well, 20,000. Let's see. Let me see what that takes out here. Okay, so taking 20,000 out of the health budget would take us from 41.278 to 41.217.
How much more money we got to cut to get to revenue neutral?
Right now for the county funds, we are, looks like 72,000 over where we would be with revenue neutral. But then on fire, we are under revenue neutral by,
And we don't get a combine the two?
well, not for the revenue neutral hearing, they're separate for what we're actually costing people in most parts of the county. In my mind, I combine them because we typically talk about the fire levy with the county levy.
Mm-hmm.
we're actually $64,000 under revenue neutral on fire. So if you were looking at them as a combined, we're only about $8,000 over neutral between them. But for the county itself, you'd have to look at knocking 72,000 out to get down to neutral. And though it's, I mean, that's a round number, it's going to be in that range.
So what do those numbers include for Trico and Southeast?
They're full ask.
Full asking? Is that what it is?
Let me get back to that spot. Hang on.
117 and like 52 or
So for Trico, I have $80,096, which was the number he came back to you with, Danny, after you'd talked to him. So that's already taken it down from their original request.
But he said the original request was made in error when I talked to him, that it should have always been the 80,096. So,
And
they
then-
haven't given any on that part.
And on the SEK mental health, that's at 119,643, I think, which is their original request number.
so I think that's where we. Jim, what do you think, Jason?
Well, we talked about it last week as far as taking the average on the Trico and giving them that. What happens if we do that, the average of Miami County, Anderson County?
Have to look at those numbers. Right. Did he give us the numbers for those two?
Yeah, I had them somewhere.
Yeah, Miami County, I think, was 143,974. And what I had was Anderson was 46,586. If
And did you have the residents that they give? Is it
Yeah.
like
99,
and then 29, right? Yeah.
99 to 29 is what I've got written down for residents.
Well, if you add Miami and Anderson together and divide it by two, the average of those two is higher than what we're paying. That's 95,280.
But that, we're talking about
Per person.
person that
We
were,
had 99 at Miami County is what I'm saying.
Which was like
that they were serving.
They were serving
You guys,
143,
they got the numbers there to do the calculation.
74.
You'd done it.
Yes.
We're talking about.
Yep.
$1,554.
I guess when it comes to Trico, I'm of the opinion that we need to cut them back just a number that we're comfortable with and say that's what we're gonna give them for this year, and we try to continue to move towards being more equitable in association to the other counties in the future.
It says in their email, it talks about this
Right.
was, made 16 years ago.
My numbers are right. I come up with giving them 35,190.
And that's, what is that per day? Is that,
That's 1,530 per person.
that's equal with the rest of the other counties?
Well, what I got it is Miami County had paid 143,974. If my numbers are right. 143,974 divided by 99. That was $1,454.
Yep.
28 cents.
Yep.
And then Anderson County paid 46,586 divided by 29. That was 1606.41. So 1454, 28, 1606.41. Divided by 2, that's $1,530.34. And I have that we had 23. That's 23, so that puts us at 35,197.93 is what I have.
And they have, how many buildings do they have in Linn County? Is it just one?
Right.
Yes.
Just
I
one
think so, but I
Housing and leasing, I think, and that's it.
duplex or whatever it is?
You know, in his report, you're talking about SEK now, right?
No.
No, no,
So,
still Trico.
Oh,
They have
Trico.
a house in Lacey, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Is it tax exempt?
I don't know. I presume that it is. I think they're a tax exempt agency, so they probably are tax exempt.
yes, that is exempt on our tax rolls, and I only see one property listed in their name.
So in his letter to us, he said that he hopes that we will honor his request. Your questions have pointed out how the funding we receive from the counties is not as equitable as it was in the past. This gives us time to start making adjustments in our budgets for next year and working with the other counties on increasing their budgets, not decreasing ours. I don't see how we can continue to pay at the same level we always have when they're not getting it from their other sources. Do we have any other thoughts about, okay, so we have this, we have SEK. Do we have any other thoughts about where we could possibly find some more to cut out?
So if we cut it back to 36,000, where we're at then, if we was to cut the, drag it back to 36?
That would, what, 46 or 44?
44,000?
And then like
So
the
that would
mental
be-
health,
We'd be 28,000 short,
how much?
28,000 short.
Like the mental health, I don't know, the notes we got from them don't really compare us to.
So if we're looking at them on a per county basis and on a I'll just give you a rundown here of what I figured. Anderson County, 7,776 people. They're paying 91,415. That works out to $11.76 per person based off population. Allen County, 12,579, 156,660 is what they're paying. That's $12.45. Neosho is 15,606. They're paying $109,006.98 per. Linn County, 9,796. 119,643 was their request. That's $12.21. Woodson, 3,109, 40,431, so $13 on theirs. Bourbon County, 14,493 for population, 90,000 for theirs, $6.20.
What was Neosho?
Neosho's was $6.98.
Wonder why they're so cheap.
And it says, how many clients do we serve in Linn County on an annual basis? It says 453 in 2022. How many services do we provide annually in Linn County? 15,353. How many staff do we have that work in Linn County is 42. Amount of write-offs in Linn County, write-offs amount in 22 was 1.4 million. I don't see how they have 42 employees.
Well,
That's,
he worded it very carefully
He worded everything pretty careful.
because there are not 42 employees based in Linn County.
42 employees see people in Linn County.
Over the period of a year, 42 different employees saw people in Linn County.
they have 42 people within their whole network
That,
that could see people in Lincoln.
Well, that's roughly 33 visits per clients a year.
that's a lot of visits.
Huh?
A lot of visits in a year.
Well, that's what I say, take 353 and divide it by 453.
They probably count a phone call as a contact.
What county are they really based out of? their home office.
They're in Allen.
Allen County.
County.
So Iowa.
That's where the biggest portion of the mill levy comes from.
So, and when I'm looking at these numbers that they gave us, to me, it looks like that Bourbon and Neosho said we're paying this amount. And that's all we're doing. You know, a 90,000, 109,000, those are round numbers. Those are your two that are paying $6.20 per person of population and $6.98 per person of population.
So if we pay $7, what is it?
1 second. $68,572.
That puts us there where we need to be under.
Says in there 60,000. 121 is their budget for their request, right?
119,643. Be 51,000 in savings.
So David, we had them at
So-
68. Go ahead.
So if we did that and saved the 51 there, would you guys be okay with only cutting 21,000 out of Tricos this year?
So if you cut both of these amounts, you're gonna be under revenue neutral, which reduces the amount of tax money compared to the current year and sets the following year's
Lower.
limit even lower, which I don't want to see us do. I mean, you keep cutting.
And that's why I'm saying that we got to find the mix between the two, how much we're cutting from each one.
Can we put something back on somewhere else? If you're worried about that, and these guys are
Well, you
taking
can,
a lot of money from
we
us.
can do something else in general fund to get it back up at least to the neutral rate. The neutral rate to me is still just
A number.
a number that a senator came up with that means nothing in how the county runs. We're gonna reduce the levy no matter what, and it's not a sustainable number long-term, and I don't know why we worry so much about it.
But again, we're wasting taxpayer money right here paying it to people that,
I understand
ripping us
not
off.
wanting to cut those out.
Yeah.
But we could easily put a little bit back in contingency and have our numbers up where we have some more money to work with, because we've still got some remodeling and building projects that we have no idea what they're gonna cost.
What, for which one?
Putting that up.
Drop it 21. So be 49.
I think it'd be hard for us to go through and just cut this significant amount all at once for both of them. But this is exactly what I was trying to do last year during budget season, so that we were prepared for it this year. That's why I've been trying to be so hard on literature and all that. But I'm glad we caught all this. But I mean, I don't want to see either operation fail, and because of something that we have done. But at the same time, I think we got to start making sure it's fair.
Well, the numbers you've said so far, I've got us under revenue neutral by about $25,000 at the moment.
that's what the raise too, right?
Yeah, that's got the cost of living in there, because I went through every department's budget and added 87 cents an hour to every employee and added that amount.
So 2 years ago, every year I think you're pretty vocal on not wanting to go under because of what it's going to do to us
Well,
later.
eventually it will catch up if you keep cutting down.
Weren't we 30,000 behind, or what was it?
We were under by 130,000 year before last. Last year we stayed right on the revenue neutral. And yeah, I mean, if it's enough to fund our budget, fine, but just realize that it may come back in another year or in 2 years, and you're gonna have to go over because you can't fund a budget anymore at that level.
Anytime you fund it below last year, that sets the new cap for next year.
Right.
Save all you can, the way I look at it.
While they're thinking, David, do you have the keys in your office to that 425 main building that we rented for community corrections? They said they returned them to your office.
Probably. I'll like to look, see what I got, but I think so.
I'm gonna tell them, Jeff was the one. Tell him to,
Okay, yeah, I'll, when I get back over there, I'll see what I have.
okay.
So you think it's a horrible idea to go under because we're in 2-3 years from now, we're going to be hitting it.
Well, I just think you can't sustain that neutral rate long-term because prices continue to increase. And you're gonna get to a point where you can't, so why keep setting yourself lower every year when prices are going up anyway?
And the 72,000 that we're short on being revenue neutral, that's before, or that's after the health department's 20,000?
I believe so. I've punched more numbers in on what we were talking about on this now, but let me get back to that page. So.
Mister, you need me for anything else? You're just doing budget now, aren't you?
I think we're fine, don't you?
Do we have contracts with either one of these? Or no, they're just
Just, they have,
is it by statute?
no. We're in a kind of association, the association doesn't, that association does not determine how much we pay. They just ask us each year for funds and we get it.
So to answer the question from a minute ago, yes, the 72 is after the 20,000 was cut.
Okay.
Brandon had messaged me back. I don't know what he said. He said he's available now. I don't know if you want to be here to talk about that or not.
Probably. I forgot about that.
You guys want to take a break on that for a second? Call him so Gary can.
It's fine.
Is that phone available? Should I call him off that?
It's gonna have to go behind you.
We know how this thing works.
No.
New call.
Hello.
Hey, Brandon, it's Danny. Hey, I got you on the telephone here in the commission meeting, and I wanted to ask your thoughts on the elderly center there in Pleasanton, where we're at on it, what your advice is, what you're thinking. Give us an update on it, if you could.
Yeah. Right now we're listed at $76,000. And we've been getting pretty consistent calls on the property, but those calls have slowed down. I'm going to recommend, just based on the amount of work that it needs, that we reduce the price to around 60,000. That's really up to you guys. I work for you, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, that we should go ahead and reduce the price to 60,000. So that just every week we've had the property listed, the call volume and interest just keeps falling. And I think last week I had one phone call.
Well, when people call you, what's their main concern on it, or is there one?
There's not a concern. Most buyers or agents from the city, they're asking what the home will qualify for. And right now we're just marketing it as cash or conventional with the work it needs. There's just no way. That's not a conventional home. Anybody that buys it is going to either be using a local lender or using cash, and they're going to know, they're a flipper or somebody like that. We had one party that looked at it for possibly converting it into 4 apartments, units, but that fell apart as well. So we're pretty much, we're dealing with investors or somebody that's cash.
Okay.
And they're just not willing to pay the price that we've got it at right now. I arrived at the price based on a visual inspection, and then I referred back to what the county had it appraised at, and so that's why I listed it where I listed it at.
Okay. So you're thinking reduce it to 60,000. Do you want to give it a time period, and then is there? I mean, I don't know.
Well, when just reducing it a few $1,000s, I've already urged buyers that you can make an offer, but we're just too far off the mark right now, I think. But if we reduce it to 60,000, I think that should increase the interest. And the end goal is that we don't have to reduce it again, and we can get it sold.
Okay.
So that's my thought.
What's your guys' thoughts? You got anything to add to it? What do you think?
No, I think it's pretty sound reasoning.
You good with it?
Whatever, I don't care.
I'm good with it.
All right. I think we're all in agreement with you, Brandon. Reduce it to 60,000.
Okay. Who do I need to send that? Do I just send it to Gary and he can sign, or how does that work?
I'd say send it to David, the county clerk, and we'll do a motion here to agree to reduce it and authorize David to sign it. How about that?
Did you hear all that, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. We'll get you a price reduction out today at 60,000, and what that'll do too, that gives us a reason to repopulate the listing, and as soon as we reduce it, everybody will see on the MLS that the property has been reduced $16,000.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
All right. Hey, thanks. Bye-bye.
So you'll need to do a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion that we reduce the price on the listing of the Pleasanton Senior Center to $60,000 and allow David to sign.
I'll second. Motion been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, back to the budgets.
So, like I said, we're without the reductions to Trico and SDK that you talked about, we're about 72,000 over neutral. If you reduced as much as you were talking about, we'd be about 25,000 under revenue neutral. Now,
So what if we reduced SEK by 51,000 and Trico by 21,000 to get us to that point? Knowing that we've got more work to do next year. But not taking it all from them up front.
okay, so that would actually take them down to 59,096 if we reduced them by 21,000. At that rate, we would be .005 over revenue neutral. So it amounts to, 70, we're about $28 over revenue neutral at that point.
Just bigger than that, you just guess.
I was figuring, but not quite good enough,
I'll
apparently.
leave that to you. So that was taking SCK from 119 to, what was it, 50?
Minus 51,
Oh,
so that would,
50, okay.
50 minus 51,071 is what I had down here if we took them to 68,643.
so we could keep our 643, or we could take another $28 off of them.
Like I said, I don't really see a point of striving for getting under that number when we don't
So,
have to, but
so what, right, but, so if we're $28 over revenue neutral, what does that, we already sent out notices, correct?
yeah, we sent out notices that are a lot more than that, just to give us some room to work on it. Because the notice that went out,
But then what happens from there?
whatever the final amount is set at this year, that will be the revenue neutral rate for next year. Or the revenue neutral tax dollars for next year. We won't know the rate until we have valuations in next year. It's setting the limit for the following year is what it amounts to. On how many tax dollars you can bring in.
Well, with these cuts and then more cuts to come next year, and then our juvenile, we're gonna be way under revenue neutral next year.
Well, it's possible.
There'll be other things that pop up to take that money.
You know,
There always are.
say
There'd be more income coming in from the jail too.
yeah. You know,
That's
set
already
aside
factored into the budget.
Building projects. We're still guessing on some of those. We may
Mhm.
need some there next year, but we won't know that till we get to that point.
And on the special bill, is that part, the judicial center, is it part of the special building fund?
Well, the way I showed it in here was to transfer money at the end of this year into the capital improvement to do that work. However, if we spend it this year, then it would come out of special building and we wouldn't transfer it.
But that's the money you put in for the old jail is the money to tear it down, not to fix it.
Right. So that's decisions you guys have got to make too. I mean,
Right.
I'm just trying to get something in there to cover us for budget purposes, at least a minimal amount on it until we know what we're doing.
So you'd be comfortable with being over $28?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter to me where we're at on it. I don't buy into this whole thing of you've got to be neutral. Because like I say, I don't think it's a sustainable thing long-term anyway, and I'm not sure why we worry that much about it. Either way, we're knocking money off our tax levy for next year.
Jim, what do you think?
I want to stay revenue neutral if we can. So,
So we gotta find the other $28?
Yeah.
Or are
If
you
you
good
want
at
to,
that, or
just go ahead and vote and go on. However,
Well, and
I'm just-
truthfully, at this
I'm just
point, we
asking,
need a
Jim,
vote.
I'm not,
We'll vote on the budget next week. I'm just trying to see what we want to have prepared for next week's meeting when you have the hearing and vote then.
So should we send these numbers to SCK and Trico and anybody else that it's gonna affect, ask them their opinion, tell them what we're,
don't think they're gonna,
I think we should take it into, I mean,
we've got their opinions and their responses.
they've already gave us what they want.
I know what they want, but I want to tell them what we're gonna give them, and
I think we should tell them what we're gonna give them, yes.
I don't think.
But I don't think we've already discussed and talked
We
with
had to
them
reach
and
back to them to get their opinion on, or get the numbers.
the answers that we, for the
It
questions.
wasn't
that we
like
had.
they was forthright in bringing them back to us.
You know, without necessarily looking for cutting $28 somewhere, I can look at the income lines again and see if there's $28 worth of income I can put in there to balance it out if you're insistent on getting to that number. And it actually probably won't be exactly 28 because the way the system calculates, there's delinquencies with it. So, you know, like if you're going to tax $100 or you need $100 you put in a budget, then the tax on that's actually going to be 101 or 2 because it figures in a delinquency percentage. So they're never, and exactly if you need to cut 28, you probably cut less than 28 to do that. But I can make it balance if that's where you guys insist on being.
Well, how do you feel about it, David? I mean, you're the professional here. You're the one that, I want to know what.
I just don't see the point on why we're hung up on revenue neutral.
So would you rather be over 72,000 or over 28? Where would I'm looking at the future too, not just right now.
I mean, with what you're cutting there on these, I don't see a reason you can't do that. And if that gets us down to where we're that close, I mean, I'm fine with it. I don't want to see us start cutting into reserves and doing things that could really hurt us in the future just to stay neutral. I completely understand cutting things where we don't need to be spending money.
And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we're even paying a lot more than everybody else is, even by cutting to get to revenue neutral.
We just so happened it got us close to revenue neutral when we did.
Huh?
I said, just so happened it got us close to revenue neutral when we did the cut.
I mean, I can put these numbers in and adjust the income line and a hair and miscellaneous or something to make it hit neutral if that's what the three of you are going to insist on doing. I mean, you're the ones that are going to approve it, not me.
Do you think we should cut from these budgets and utilize the money somewhere else?
At this point, the only other thing I would see on using it would be putting it away for building projects. I mean, I could bump something on contingency a little more if we needed to. I don't know what those are going to take. And I mean, I don't think you guys really do at this point either, other than the one we've got more firm numbers on.
Why wouldn't we take this on down to where it ought to be and then put the other in contingency, and then we got the money for the building projects for ourselves we can use instead of handing it to somebody else? If that's what you want to do. Let's take it down to where we ought to be. On the average, take these two down to the average and then put the other, if you want to save the money, put it back into contingency instead of just handing it there. I'm good with that.
Income by 16,000 based on the grant being sold.
I don't know what I had in there for that. If I even had that in there yet.
But if we stayed at the $72,000 over, we're not raising people's taxes, are we? Because we were under from last year, correct?
Yeah. Let me get to another page here and then give you a multi-part answer to that. Yeah, I don't have that in there where it's going to affect anything. So when you say raising people's taxes, that's more of an individual taxpayer when you look at that point. What you guys can affect is the mill levy. The way we're standing right now, we would be reducing the mill levy by close to 2.5 or close to 1.5 mills, I think, or a little over, right? I'm not staring at that part right now. Or no, it would, yeah, it'd be just a little over 1.5. So that's really what you control is the budget, and then it's a calculation to get the mill levy. What somebody's going to pay on their taxes, in my mind anyway, is way more dependent on the valuation of their property and how much that changed. Because if your value went up 10% from the year before and we reduce the tax levy by 3%, you're still going to pay more taxes. If your value didn't go up and we leave this levy the same, you're going to pay the same amount of taxes.
Which is kind of what happened this year because of last year, right?
Yeah, and that's, you've got to look at individual taxpayers when you really talk about whether you're going to raise or lower someone's taxes.
But if we leave the 72,000, how much were we going to be over? Like 0.5 or 1.5 or what was it? 1.5 mils?
So we were still going to be under neutral. Okay, right now I've got us at 40.999 mils. Neutral is 40.994. And that puts, like I said, was what, $28 over neutral. What we cut out of those two is right around 72. I have to jump back and forth different pages here to give you.
1.5 mils.
It was still a reduction. Let me find it. Hang on. So let's say I just dump 72 back in there just to get the number back up. Without cutting that 72 out, we were at 41.217 mils. So that one is a roughly 0.3 over neutral, and it's about 1.3 mils below current rate.
Which if we, so we kept the $72,000 in and people's valuations went up and we stayed at the 41.217, then there's still gonna be,
It could be paying in more.
So here's, okay, the difference in 41.217 and 40.994, which is neutral, is actually 0.223 mils. To know what that's going to do to somebody's taxes, you got to look at the value. The number we always use and throw out there is $100,000 house, just because it's easy to calculate. $100,000 house has a valuation of 11,500. If you take 11,500 times 0.223 mils, that's $2.56 would be the increase in being at that level on a $100,000 house versus revenue.
Per $100,000.
Yeah. Now, there are a lot of houses worth more than 100. There's a lot of people that own a lot of ground that have way more than that tied up. So, but yes, per 100,000 of valuation on a residence. Farm ground percentage is a different reduction than residential. I mean, there are about a dozen different percentages and variations you can look at. You're getting into individuals' tax amounts that there's no end to looking at that for people. I know there were still a lot of increases in value around the county this year on various types of property. So even with knocking $1.5 million off our levy, there's probably a lot of people that we're still going to see their county tax amount go up. I would say not everyone, but there will be a fair amount. And then also when you start talking about what people pay in taxes, the county is only one part of what they're paying. It's going to depend on what their township or city or school district or everybody else did on what their final tax bill is going to be. This is just the county portion.
so keeping our mill levies and our evaluation as close as possible is gonna reduce. I mean,
You're gonna, being this far under the current rate, so that's another thing to look at. So if you go from, I have the 72 back in there at the moment just for calculation purposes, but 2.581 minus 40.217. So right now with the 72 in there, I'm at a reduction of 1.364 mils. On that same $100,000 house, that's a reduction in taxes of $15.69. So for every 100,000 on a residence, you're going down $15.69. But again, for an individual, you got to look at what your value was compared to the year before to know what your taxes are going to do. I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me what you want to have on the form next week when we come in, or if you want to think about it and send me your opinions later. If you want to stay right on the neutral rate, tell me that. I'll find a way with these adjustments to get us there. That's up to you at this point.
So we're gonna make a decision, a motion next week on it? Is that what you're?
So
Is there
next
anything
week,
from us this
we'll
week
have
on
to
it?
have hearings on revenue neutral and budget. I need to look, if we actually are proposing staying neutral, I need to look at the regulations and see if we still have to have a revenue neutral hearing. Because we published that we were going to, because we published going over that rate. And if we're reducing down to neutral, I don't know if we still have to have that part of the hearing or not because we published it. But I'll check on that. But just for sake of argument right now, say we do go over revenue neutral a little bit. What you'd have to do next week is you have to open a revenue neutral hearing, ask if there's public comment, give people to talk about whether or not they think you should go over revenue neutral or why. You close that, and then you would have to approve a resolution going over revenue neutral. After that's done, then you have a budget hearing. So the budget hearing is for sure needing to happen next week. The other two parts, I need to look at the regulations depending on where we are. When it gets to the budget hearing, then you open a hearing for the budget. And that's where taxpayers have an opportunity to voice their opinion about your budget and what it requires in taxes and ask why you need that, or, whatever their comments are. After those comments, you close that hearing, then you vote on approving the budget.
Okay.
And I have all that scheduled to start at 11 o'clock next week.
So if we don't go over and we've already sent out these over revenue neutral notices, do we have to pay any of that back?
Well, this year, it doesn't cost us anything to send them out anyway, because the state's paying us back for the cost of sending them out. Now, years after this, we don't think the state's going to pay us back. At that point, I'm going to have to calculate who pays for which share of the notices that went out based on how many notices they created. I did that calculation this year just to see how it would come out if we were paying it. The total bill was just under 13,000 to send all the notices out. The part the county would have had to have paid for out of that was 3,000 and something. I don't remember the exact number, but our share of that would have been a little over $3,000 that it would
And
have
it must have just been divided up.
And yeah, because then all of the school districts were going over, so about that much more went to the school districts
Oh, okay.
combined.
They pay for their own too.
Well, next year they'll have to. The extension district went over and it's countywide, so that was about another 3,000 and something on it. So between those things, there's 9 to 10,500 of the 12 or 13. And then the others that went over would have been some of the cities, SEK library.
But none of that drops down to individual.
And
residents.
their amounts are much smaller on what they'd have to pay that make up the rest of it.
I gotcha.
But this year, the state's paying us back for the cost.
So right now we're in agreeance on the number for CHC or SEK mental health and Trico.
Are we?
I don't know. You guys tell me.
So, because, I mean, I'm proposing cutting them 21,000. Jim, you're saying you want to go all the way back? Or,
I'd say we might as well hang on to the money as give it to them. Why do we need to? Let's put it in our, if you guys want to keep the extra, let's keep it. Let's not give it to the other two. I'm saying drop it back to the average, like we talked about, and if we want to
I
keep
know,
it,
I know what you're saying.
if we want to keep it in the contingency,
You get
keep
that?
it. I mean, that-
Which way are you leaning?
I would rather not cut them all the way back and give them time to swallow what we're giving
I
them.
thought, Danny, you was the one that wanted to keep this.
Well,
You was the one to come up with it, which I think is a great idea.
coming up with, I want to know, yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring this all to light to everybody, yes.
I don't think they got back with us when we asked for the information myself either. You know, as far as it took us quite a while to find the information out when we asked for it.
On SEK.
Right.
We didn't have that issue with Trico.
No. But they wasn't forthright with it. We had to ask.
You're 100% right. I'm all about getting it all to everyone's attention, and I've been trying to do it since I became a commissioner because none of it made sense.
Well, let's keep the money for the county then, if we're going to keep it instead of giving it to them.
So I think I have a 3-part question to be prepared for next week. The exact amounts you want in budget for Trico and for SEK mental health was the first 2 parts. The third part being, do you want to get down to the dollar of revenue neutral and have me adjust somewhere to get there? So if you guys can give me those answers, I can have it ready for the hearing next week. And I've been bouncing numbers in and out of here several times, so probably want to verify those amounts that you guys calculated on those and what you want to.
So if we kept $72,000 in-house, would you guys be opposed to putting it towards our employees and trying to get them filled, our spots filled?
We're giving them 4% pay raise right now. I don't,
How many open seats do we have in the county? Do you know? I mean, jobs listed?
I think we've got 4 or 5 that we've got posted right now.
but that's already budgeted for the jobs. That's already been in the
Yeah.
budget.
The only other question I'd have is, I'm not sure if the sheriff has everything posted that he wants to get to, or if that's just getting back where he's been, but that's more of a discussion we need to have with him on his jobs. I believe he would still need to increase some positions if they wanted to take in very many more prisoners than he's taken right now.
That was already in his budget for the 4 new judges. I mean, that's already in his next year's
I think
budget, I think.
Yeah. Now, whether we can actually fill those spots or not, we don't know.
Right.
But those, I don't know that they're currently advertised. They could be. I don't have all that information right in front of me.
And your proposal, David, is to stay above revenue neutral so that we're not lowering the mill levy so much because the valuation keeps going up every year on houses and it's just going to keep causing separation and
Well,
bigger percentage in valuations each year. Because that's what kind of happened this year, right? I mean, there was 250% markup or whatever on some people's, they called me over it.
well, I think some people saw some huge ones. Yeah, and again, you're looking at individual taxpayers there, and what I'm working on here, I don't look at individuals. I'm looking at a county budget as a whole. I am more worried about if values start dropping again, how much we have to raise the levy in the future to bring in what we need. And in my mind, that's where I'd rather come in lower if I had to keep from raising the levy as much. But that's just philosophy on how you look at long-term, what you want to do with things.
So so where are we at on the SEK and Trico? What are we gonna? Can we all agree where we're at on that?
We're cutting SEK 51,000. I think we're in agreement on that. Correct?
From the 119.
From the 119, we're gonna knock them down 51 to get them to the $7.
To the average.
Right.
So you want to knock them down 51,000 even, or is there a certain dollar number you're trying to get to there? What I had punched in there at the moment was minus $51,071, which got me at 68,572. But I've written down about half a dozen different numbers here, and I'm not sure if that's the one you're trying to get to.
So what number were you at? 78 what?
For what we would be paying them, I'm at 68,572.
Let's
68.
just do 68,000. What do you guys think?
You talking on the amount to cut or the amount
The
to?
amount to pay them?
Okay, well, to do that, I got to knock another $572 off, which then that's going to question what do we want to do with that. But I'm good with whatever number you guys want to put in.
I'm just saying that it should be a round number.
That's the average, was the $7, so it's 68,000. I just make it 68,000.
So you want to get that one down to 68. Put in 68 here.
Okay.
And then
Okay, so that one's taken care of. We're done talking about SEK.
Trico, we've talked about knocking 21,000 off. We've talked about knocking 41,000 off.
Which we like, if we knock 21, it'd be 59.
I've got 21,000 even coming off would put us at 59,096. If you're looking for round numbers, do you want to go 59 even there, or what are we doing?
Well, are we going back to the,
Or do you want to go down to 39 and knock?
are we going back to the 1530 a person times 23? Being the average? Or 1,600 times?
So I got too many numbers written down too. So we cut them like we did SEK, we'd be what, 35,193, is that what you said?
That's, I got a 35,190, yeah. It's making them 36,000. What's it do?
If you only put them at 36, and you put SEK at 68, then overall, we are now about 25,000 under revenue neutral. And 25 is a rounded number, but in that range.
But we could put them where, at those two numbers, but then keep the $72,000. I mean, we could put the rest in a,
Into contingency,
Contingency.
special money.
25,000 is what you're saying. We've got
keep us-
25 extra.
And if you want to get back to the neutral rate, I would need to put roughly 25,000 back in. Yes, and contingency be the easiest place to put it, because that's where we're taking a bunch of those unknown expenses from. And it's also within the general fund, and that doesn't mess up my general fund levy that's been published.
so how do you feel about that? How do you guys feel about that? Really what I'm just trying to get is give both these entities a number, and then next week we let them know what we're going to do, and what do you guys think?
I'm good with that. Just stick it in there and go on. If we got to keep it, let's just put it in the contingency, but stay under revenue neutral. I'm good with it.
How do you feel?
I would like to stage back the cuts on Trico instead of just doing it all in one fell swoop. So what do you think, Danny?
I would like to hear from each entity I'd like to propose what we want to give them, hear back from them, get an email, have them, talk to them, feel like, figure out what it's going to do to their daily operations, what'll happen to our Linn Countyans that are in their programs, if just the more the repercussions, what'll happen if we cut these budgets down this much all at once. I'd just like to hear what they have to say and then make a decision on it next week. It's kind of where I'm at.
I don't know, obviously, what they're gonna say or what their reasoning will be, but here's what I kind of expect is if you cut them, whatever number you cut them back to this year, next year, they're probably going to look at all of their members again and adjust to try to get back up to where they think they need to be for operating. So your average number per person they serve is probably going to go up next year, and we're probably going to look at increases again. Now, maybe not
Not be near where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I get that.
That's what I'm saying, make it even with everybody if we're gonna make it even.
Yeah, no, and I
Right,
I
I
completely
understand what you're
understand where you're
saying.
coming from, but I don't think if you cut it down an immense amount this year, you're gonna see that low of a number again in the following year, because I think they're gonna adjust what they charge everyone, and we're gonna come back up from that. To
That's a
even be
huge difference from where we're at to where everybody else was.
Yeah.
That's what I would.
I guess I'm saying, if you cut a Trico to 36 this year, don't expect next year is gonna be 36.
Right.
Because they're gonna look at their member counties and adjust, and we're probably gonna, even to stay at the same funding per person that they serve, we're probably gonna be more than that next year. But that's not just at the 36, that'd be at 56 or whatever level we're at. If I was running one of those places, that's what I'd do, is I'd come back next year with requests to all my counties to balance it back out again.
That's where it needs to be, is balanced out. You know,
I mean, I think it's been a long time coming on this. We got a few different entities that are, I believe we're being overcharged for. I'm glad we're finding it. So that's where I'm at. Because it's which numbers do we want to share with Trico and SEK?
Well, we already decided on SEK. Right?
Yeah, I think so. What?
The 51,000 off. So 68,000 even. What number do you want to share with Trico, Danny?
And the last thing I want to see is Trico not be able to sustain itself because we cut a budget so much. But I believe that it does have to be fair. And I've been to Trico and I went out there and walked through it, and I do like their operation and how what they provide, and I think we should offer them the 59 and see what that's going to do to them and get feedback from both of them, and then we make a decision on exactly what we're going to do next week. That's where I want to be.
Okay.
I think SEK, not to be unfair, I just think they're a bigger entity. They have more county, they have more backing. I'm not saying it's not going to hurt them, but I think it's hurt us for too long. So 68 and 59. And see what that's gonna do to them. Can we send them an email and get feedback from them, give them our numbers to reach out to us to, if they wanna share with us what they got going on?
I can send something out if that's what the three of you want to do. Or I guess if 2 out of 3 want to, or however you want to look at that, or majority. But you're telling me 59. Jim's telling me he'd like to go down to 36, I think, was where we were at.
I was at 59.
So, again, that's, you three make that decision. I'm putting numbers in.
I mean, yeah, I think I'm at 59 now. I wanna know, I wanna hear some feedback from them of what it'll do to their operation. Cause last thing I said, like I said, I don't want to see somebody have to shut down services because we kicked so much money out all at once, and then we're trying to just put dollars back into a fund.
And Jim, to your point, I'm all for moving us toward being that equitable position with them. I don't want to pull out on them all at once.
You know where I stand, that's where I'm staying. You guys can vote however, we'll move on.
I don't think we need to vote. Like I said, I mean, that's where I am.
It's 2-1 then, go ahead.
I don't think we're voting. I think it's just
I know where I'm at, that's where I'm staying, so.
we share with them what our thoughts are on it and get some feedback and figure out next week exactly where we want to be. Are you good with that? Are you good with that?
And then I guess the third part of my question is, do you want me to adjust tax dollars to get us to the same amount of tax income as the prior year, which is neutral?
That's what I want.
I mean, it's very close where we're at right now, but there'd be a few dollars adjustment here and there.
Just adjusted a few dollars.
All right, well, that gets me what I need to prepare for next week, and
Okay.
and then, so you want me to email those 2 organizations, say this is what the commission is planning on doing, and you need to reach out to the commissioners
Or just, I mean, or it doesn't matter.
in next week's meeting or
Yeah,
something if
just,
you want
I'd
to
like
talk
to hear
about
their,
that.
Are you good with that decision?
Danny wants to hear from him.
Are you good with that decision, Jason? I mean, hey, you can reach out to them, but to me, we made the call, so I move on.
but I've been trying to make the call for 3 years and get this figured out. And, you know, they're in a different budget cycle than us. So we're just taking money out in the middle of their budget like people's done to us, which is not fun at all. You guys know that. That's where I'm at. I mean, I hate when people do that stuff to us and then it puts us in a pickle, and here we are rumbling around trying to figure out a plan.
Each one of their budgets surely got contingencies too, don't they? I mean, you would think.
I would if I was doing their budget.
I don't think they're anybody. If it's that tight, they better look out anyway.
Are we gonna change it next week based off what they say? I guess that's what it comes down to. Because I don't really feel like I'm going to
I mean, if
change.
Trico,
I'm not
Jim's already stated his
I've
stand.
said it 14 times today, so I don't think I'm gonna change. So.
I mean,
I've heard, I talked to John from Trico on the phone. He knows where I stand. I know where he stands and where he's coming from. I want to support them, but I think it still needs to be equitable. His reasons that he gave me for why it wasn't, I don't buy them. There was no reason.
I think we're the gold standard or something like
Yeah.
that, what we got told.
Yes. Yeah,
I think that's exactly what he stood there and told us.
we've always supported more.
Yeah.
And I don't find that to be a good enough reason for us to continue to support more.
Well, the 29 people that I seen smiling when I went into the entity and walked around it and seen what they had going on is very important to me. I don't care what John had to say. I'm more of the people of Linn County that get to utilize the operation that they're providing for them, and to see it. And if something like this end up kicking us out of the Trico organization or shutting it down, that would not be all right with me. So that's where I'm at. It's not about what we're giving Trico. They're giving our community something, and I've seen that was given to them. And I think it's very important.
So they didn't shut down when Miami County and Anderson County
I'm not saying they're
pulled
gonna shut
back
down. I
their
just wanna hear
support.
What they, if they're gonna
They never did give us.
kick people out of their program because of
We've
it.
probably been the gold standard all along.
We can do whatever you guys want.
I reached out to other commissioners in other counties, and that wasn't just that, they said what they was given.
Okay, did you reach out to Trico?
I just can't see why we gotta pay that much more than everybody else. Is that the way you bid your jobs, Danny? I
No,
mean, you charge one guy a lot more than you
no,
do
I
the other.
don't, but I'm just telling you where I'm at on it.
Well, I'm just saying that comes back to bite you usually when you do things like that.
Yeah. But it involves more than just John Platt and Trico.
But
business.
he's the one that runs.
The manager,
Something like that, I guess, yeah. But
okay.
there's 29, 24 people that utilize it, and I don't want to see that be interrupted. I don't know why it's such an argument. I mean, if somebody's gonna cut your budget, wouldn't you like to know about it?
Gonna let them know. I'm just saying that we've already had their reasons and their discussion back on why they think they should stay where they're at and why, at least from my perspective, I told him why I thought they should not be receiving as much.
So if we provide them $36,000 and they have to,
That's not what I'm asking to do.
no, I'm just saying, if they say they have to let go 10 people that they take in from Linn County and they're on a 10-year waiting list or whatever to get in it, what do we do? Are you gonna answer to them 10 families? Are you gonna go hang out with the disabled person that's utilizing that company up there? Are you gonna go sit with them and play games and talk to them and give them a smile on their face? Because I'm not. I don't have time. Are you? No, because that's what they do up there. If you were disabled, would you like to sit at home and do nothing all day? Because they're very active up there, and it's a good program. If you guys haven't went and looked at it, I suggest you do.
So
Not just talk to their
what do you
commissioners,
want to do?
talk to Trico. I want them to propose to them a number and see what they come back as, if it's going to affect their operation. If they're going to kick Linn Countyans out of their program because of it. That's what I want to know. That's it.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.